The year was 1865, and the frontier was a place where men vanished faster than smoke from a six-shooter. Clay McGraw stood at the edge of the cemetery hill, dust rising around his boots as if the earth itself was still coughing up secrets. They were burying a man today, a rich one, fifth husband of Maudella Rigsby, the cattle baroness with more land than the railroad and more enemies than the devil. Clay watched the coffin sink into the earth, a pine box plain enough to make a beggar blush. No tears, no sermon, just a few nods from hired hands and some drunk preacher muttering something about ash and dust while glancing toward the saloon down the road. Maudella didn't flinch. 80 years old, face like weather parchment, eyes like flint. She wore black, of course, but not mourning black. Hers was the kind of black that looked ready for war. She didn't cry, didn't blink, just stare at the grave like she'd buried 5 dogs instead of 5 husbands. Clay lit a match with his thumb and dragged a roll of tobacco across his lip. He didn't know why he was here, really. Maybe it was the promise of spectacle. Maybe it was the rumor that she'd offer her fortune to any man fool enough to wear her ring. Or maybe it was because he'd hit rock bottom 3 weeks ago and was still digging. When the last shovel of dirt landed, Maudella turned. Her gaze swept the crowd like a knife looking for a throat. Then it landed on Clay, and for the first time in days, he felt the hair on his neck rise. She walked straight toward him, cane in hand, boots hitting the ground with a slow, deliberate rhythm. She stopped 2 feet from him. "You got a name, cowboy?" she asked. "Clay McGraw." "You broke." "Ma'am, I got debts older than your last husband." Her mouth twitched. Might have been a smirk, might have been gas. "You shoot straight." "Well enough." "Good. I need a husband. Not for bed, not for love. For show. For fighting. For keeping what's mine." Clay blinked once. Twice. "Beg pardon?" "I said I need a husband. You're standing here with nothing but a smart mouth and a lean frame." "That about right. Sounds accurate. I'll give you land. A house. Cattle. All in writing. You marry me, keep quiet, and stay alive. You ride for me. You kill for me. And when I die, you get everything." "Everything? Well, not my boots. I plan to be buried in those." There was no laughter, no warmth in her tone. Just pure transaction, as clean and sharp as a ledger line. Clay didn't answer right away. He didn't trust her. Hell, he didn't trust anybody. But the truth was he'd eaten stale biscuits and squirrel for 6 days straight. He hadn't seen a dollar that didn't belong to someone else in months. And the winters in the Texas Panhandle didn't much care for drifters without roofs. He tipped his hat back. "I reckon I could do worse." "Then meet me at Jenkins' saloon by sundown tomorrow," she said, turning without another word. And just like that, Clay McGraw was engaged. They were married under a pair of longhorns nailed to the saloon wall. The bartender doubled as witness, and the town's one-eyed marshal mumbled through the vows with the interest of a man hoping to get back to his bottle before it warmed. The only music was the wind whistling through the broken window pane and the lazy creak of an old sign swinging on rusted hinges outside. Clay stood in a borrowed shirt, Maudella in a black lace dress that looked like it could stand on its own. She didn't smile. Neither did he. When it was done, she handed him a rolled deed and a list of names. Men, rivals, claim jumpers, thieves, her enemies. "You'll ride out tomorrow. Collect what's mine. Make examples if you have to," she said. "No wedding night." She raised an eyebrow. "Son, I buried 5 men. I got more ghosts than heat in my bones." That night, Clay slept in a bedroom the size of a church, with windows barred from the inside and a revolver under the pillow. The mansion was silent, too silent. Every creak sounded like a footstep, every gust of wind like breath. Come morning, he walked into town. Heads turned. Folks stepped aside. Even dogs stopped barking. He leaned on the bar at the trading post, ordered coffee thick as tar, and listened. She'd done buried another one, a man whispered. "5th now. All died sudden. Last one choked on poison, they say. Before that, fella accidentally shot himself. With his own rifle. Backwards." Clay didn't flinch. He sipped his coffee, slow and deliberate, while listening to his own funeral being written in rumor. On his way back, he noticed something odd. The gates to the south pasture were open. The herd scattered. Maudella stood nearby, shotgun in hand, hat pulled low. Riders came through, she said, not turning. Broke the gate, killed one of the bulls. Sent a message. Want to send one back? She glanced at him then. Not yet. You ride with me. Tonight. That night, under a blood-orange sky, they rode through the broken terrain east of the ranch. Rocks jutted like teeth. Shadows danced. Clay caught sight of movement ahead. 3 silhouettes near the ridge. Hold, Maudella whispered. Then gunfire. The first shot missed. Clay ducked behind his horse. Drew fired. One down. Another charged. Clay spun, shot again. The third tried to run. Clay shot him in the leg, then walked up and leveled the barrel. Who sent you? He asked. The man groaned. Don't kill me. Clay cocked the hammer. Who? The man whimpered. Tate. Sheriff Tate. Clay frowned. That name stung. Like a wound reopening. He lowered the gun. Let him go, Maudella said. The message's been delivered. Back at the ranch, Clay poured himself a drink and stared at the fire. Maudella handed him a sealed envelope. Found it in the desk, she said. Figured you ought to see it. The letter was old, yellowing. On the front, his name. Inside, a warrant signed by Sheriff Gideon Tate. Date, 1861. Crime, desertion. Status, shoot on sight. Clay's breath caught. He folded the paper slowly. That's not a common document. No, it ain't, she said, and I didn't find it by accident. You dig through my past before proposing? I don't marry blind. Clay narrowed his eyes. You trying to test me, Maudella? She met his gaze. I'm trying to see if you'll survive. A cold silence settled between them, heavy as snowfall. Then she walked out, came tapping against the floorboards. Clay sat there long after she was gone, thinking about a winter night in Missouri and the face of a dying man calling his name. He'd thought he'd buried that part of himself, left it bleeding in the dirt. But now it clawed its way back. 2 days later, he rode to Maudella's study. The door was locked. He jimmied it open with a knife. Inside, oil paintings, maps, stacks of letters. One drawer was half open. Inside, a photo. Faded. Torn. A younger Maudella standing beside a man Clay didn't recognize. Behind them, a boy. Blonde. Familiar eyes. He flipped the photo. Scribbled on the back. He'll never know. He can't. Clay pocketed the photo. The fire in his chest burned low and steady now. Not anger, but suspicion. That night, just before he turned in, he heard a noise at the door to his room. A soft click. He sprang from the bed, gun in hand, turned the knob. Locked. From the outside. He waited. 10 seconds. 20. Then a shadow passed under the crack of the door. Someone was testing him. Watching him. And maybe, just maybe, counting down to his funeral. By dawn, he was gone. He left the dummy in the bed and slipped out the second-story window like a ghost. He didn't run. Didn't hide. He needed answers, not escape. He rode to the sheriff's office in town, found it empty. A clerk sat behind the desk. Young, nervous. Sheriff Tate around? Clay asked. The clerk shook his head. Out east. Said he was tracking someone from the war. Said the man deserted in 61. Claimed he killed a child during retreat. Real bad business. Clay leaned in. What's the name? The clerk checked a list. Clay McGraw. Clay smiled, slow and sharp. That's a hell of a coincidence. He rode back to the ranch in a haze of dust and heat. Whatever Maudella knew about his past wasn't by chance. It was deliberate, which meant the marriage wasn't a proposal. It was a trap, or a test. Either way, he wasn't playing by her rules anymore. He returned to the mansion just as the sun dipped below the ridge. She was waiting for him on the porch, 2 glasses of whiskey in hand. Did you run? She asked. No. Then you passed. Clay took the drink. Passed what? Don't know yet, she said. But I'll let you know when I do. They drank in silence. 2 shadows cast long across blood-red wood. Somewhere in the hills, a coyote howled. And somewhere deeper, something older stirred between them. Respect, maybe. Or danger. Maybe both. Clay didn't know what shocked him more. That he was still alive. Or that a part of him wanted to stay. The wind came down from the ridgelines like a whisper full of teeth. It rattled the shutters of the Rigsby mansion, stirred the dust in the chimney, and clawed its way under every door. Inside, Clay McGraw sat at the old dining table, nursing a shoulder still sore from a bullet that had come far too close, staring into the flames like they owed him an answer. Maudella sat across from him, her face lit in flickers, her expression unreadable. "You ever wonder what lies under a house like this?" she asked without looking up. Clay's eyes narrowed. "Snakes, most likely. Bad ones. The kind that smile at you first." She smiled at that. Not a real smile. A ghost of one. And bones. Don't forget bones. He didn't ask what she meant. Not yet. The morning after the shootout, Clay had started exploring the mansion. Not out of curiosity, no, that got men killed, but out of instinct. The kind honed in foxholes and riverbanks, where the enemy was never more than a shadow away. The house was too old, too big, too silent. The halls echoed when he walked, and certain floorboards groaned a half-second late, like they didn't quite want him there. Doors stuck in ways that felt deliberate. He counted 11 rooms on the second floor and 3 doors that wouldn't open. One he picked. Inside was nothing but cobwebs and a broken cradle, long rotted through. The second door had no keyhole, just iron rivets sunk deep into the wood. The third had a lock covered by a brass plate engraved with the Rigsby crest. That one he left for later. That night, he dreamt of Missouri again, of cold sleet and the dying man he left behind, whispering a name Clay hadn't thought of in years, Tate. When Clay woke, the house was too quiet. He went to check the south end of the property and found smoke curling from the tree-line. A warning, maybe a promise. He returned and found Maudella already sitting in the parlor, nursing tea like it might be poisoned. She didn't look up as he came in. "You got secrets, Clay McGraw. You've got a vault full of 'em, Maudella." "That we do." He watched her for a moment. "What happened to your first husband?" Her hand paused mid-lift. "Which one?" "The one that built this place." She looked over at the fireplace. "Henry Rigsby. Built it in '39. Said he'd raise cattle and sons. He did neither. He tried to sell the ranch behind my back, then fell down a well. Snapped his neck. You push him?" "I didn't have to. The bottle did it for me." The silence that followed was long and sharp-edged. Clay broke it with his boots. He walked past her, deeper into the house, until he found the old study again. The desk hadn't moved, but the portrait above it looked wrong, tilted slightly. He straightened it, and something clicked. The panel behind it slid inward with a soft thunk. He paused, then pulled the panel aside. A narrow staircase descended into the dark. Cool air drifted up, old, damp, touched by the scent of stone and something faintly metallic. He lit a lantern. As he descended, the walls turned from wood to rough-hewn stone. The staircase ended in a chamber just large enough to hold 5 stone coffins, each one marked with initials carved by a knife, not a mason. HR, WP, TL, SD, and JC. The names of Maudella's husbands. Clay walked slowly between them. One lid was slightly ajar. He pulled it open, half expecting bones, but there was nothing. Empty. No body. No rot. Just dust and silence. He checked another. Same thing. In the last one, he saw something that made his breath catch. A pair of boots. Not inside the coffin, but beside it. Old, worn leather. One sole had a notch cut the same way Clay had always done it, slicing a slit into the heel to hold an extra knife. He crouched. They were his boots. No, not exactly, but near enough. Same make, same model, his size. He stood and looked around the chamber again, a hollow growing in his gut. A hand gripped his shoulder from behind. He spun, gun halfway drawn, only to find Maudella standing in the lantern glow. Her face looked carved from granite. "I told you," she said, "this house was built on bones." "You've been bringing husbands down here after you kill him?" he asked. Her voice didn't rise. "I ain't never killed a man who didn't try to kill me first. That what you think I'll do too?" She shrugged. "You haven't yet." Clay stepped back, away from her shadow. "You keep their coffins empty as reminders? Warnings. To myself. To them. Those were good men who made bad choices. One sold me out to outlaws. One gambled away the ranch deed. Another, he hit me. Once." Clay nodded slowly. "And the boots. I had those made." She walked to the wall and ran her hand across it. "You weren't the first man I watched for years before marrying." Clay's mouth went dry. You knew about me before we met. I saw what you did in Missouri. I read the letters. I saw the report Tate wrote. The death warrant. I know what you left behind. You think I killed that child. I think you did what men do when the world breaks them. I just wanted to see if you'd do it again. Clay stepped forward. And if I had, you'd be in that coffin. Or I would. They stood there, two storms circling one another. Then Maudella faltered. Her hand went to her chest. She staggered. Clay caught her before she fell. Her pulse was thready. Her lips pale. Poison? He asked. She nodded weakly. Tea. Who? Inside, someone got inside. He lifted her carefully and carried her upstairs, burst through the front doors, and threw her over the saddle. He rode fast, hoofs pounding dirt into thunder. But when he reached the doctor's house, the place was empty. A note pinned to the door read, "Gone to Amarillo. Back in a week." Maudella groaned. "Not here," she whispered. "Go back. My safe. Study. The key." Clay rode back under dying light, Maudella limp in his arms. He laid her on the bed, heart pounding, and fetched the brass key from around her neck. It slid into the drawer in her desk, revealing a false bottom. Inside the compartment were three things. A wanted poster, his own, faded but clear. A letter in elegant handwriting, signed, Lenora. And a photograph. The poster was dated 4 years prior. It said, "Wanted, Clay McGraw, deserter, suspected of child murder, shoot on sight. Sheriff Gideon Tate." Clay stared at it. The past felt like it had teeth again. He opened the letter. "Maudella, I forgive you. He was only a boy. We were all hurting. You did what you had to." Then the photo. A younger Maudella, early 30s, standing in front of the ranch with a baby boy in her arms. The boy's face, those eyes. Clay's eyes. He sank into the chair. She didn't marry him to protect herself. She married him to see what he'd become. He rose and walked to the bedroom. She stirred as he entered. "That child," he said. "The one Tate accused me of killing. Was that me?" Maudella opened her eyes slowly. "Not exactly." Clay's jaw clenched. "Then who?" "Your father was a bastard," she said. "Not by blood. But he raised you, fought beside you, then abandoned you. The child that died was his. Yours in a way. A boy left behind in the crossfire. And Tate blamed you because you lived when that child didn't." Clay sat at the edge of the bed. "Why not tell me this from the start? I needed to see if you'd become like him." "I ain't him." "No," she whispered. "You're not." Outside, a sound. Faint at first, then louder. Voices, then torchlight. Clay stepped to the window and saw them. 6 riders, maybe more, coming fast across the ridge. One held a banner, another a torch. He turned to Maudella. "They followed me." She tried to sit up. "No, they were coming anyway." "Who are they?" "Sheriff Tate's men. Still hunting, still blaming. They think if they kill you, the past dies with you. Then let's make sure it doesn't." He grabbed his rifle, double-checked the rounds, then looked down at her one last time. "I won't let them take this place." She smiled, faint and proud. "Then you're finally ready." Clay didn't reply. He stepped out onto the porch, wind howling around him, and watched the torches snake closer like fire on a fuse. He wasn't just defending a ranch now. He was standing guard over a graveyard full of choices, and one woman who dared to test whether he was worth saving. The first shot came from the dark. He ducked, rolled, returned fire. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was reckoning. The first shot split the night like a whip crack, sending the porch lantern spinning off its hook. Clay hit the deck boards, rolled behind the railing, and brought his rifle up just in time to see a muzzle flash from the tree line. He fired back, once, twice, then ducked as rounds chewed splinters from the column inches from his head. Inside, Maudella called out, her voice thinner now. "How many?" "Too many for pleasantries," Clay muttered. The torches kept advancing. 6, no, 8 men at least. But it wasn't the number that chilled him. It was the precision. They moved like soldiers, not outlaws. That meant they were trained. That meant they were Tate's men. Clay reached into the porch crate, pulled out the spare rounds, and began reloading without looking. "Maudella," he called through the door. "You still breathing?" Her voice floated back like smoke. "Barely, but I ain't done yet." He smiled bitter and fast. "Didn't figure you'd check out without watching the end." Another shot rang out, this one closer. Clay turned, fired at the flickering torchlight, and was rewarded with a shriek. One down. From inside, a shuffle of boots, then the familiar thunk of her cane. Maudella appeared in the doorway, backlit by firelight, holding her late husband's double-barreled scattergun. Her dress was half-buttoned, her lips pale, but her eyes burned. "I got 2 barrels left," she said. "You pick your favorite corpse." Clay grunted. "You're out of bed." "I've been out of my grave 5 times already," she spat. "I ain't scared of 6. She stepped past him, slow but sure. Clay took her left flank, and together they fired into the dark. Another man fell, torch tumbling from his grasp into the dust. A voice called out, clear and sharp. "Clay McGraw, you in there?" Clay froze. The voice hadn't changed. "Sheriff Tate," Clay called back. "You got a warrant? Or are we skipping that part this time?" Tate stepped into the light. Older now, thick beard, dark duster. But the badge still gleamed, and so did the hate in his eyes. "You know why I'm here," he said. "You killed a child, McGraw, and hid behind war to dodge the noose." Clay stood, heart hammering. "That child died in crossfire, Tate. I didn't pull the trigger." "You left him," Tate said. "Left him bleeding while you ran. And you never stopped chasing that ghost, did you?" Tate sneered. "Maybe I was chasing you all along." Another shot, this one from the roof. Clay's bullet clipped Tate's shoulder. The sheriff staggered, cursed but stayed standing. Maudella raised her shotgun. "No," Clay growled. "He's mine." Tate took a step closer, hand hovering near his holster. "You think marrying her changes what you did?" "I think marrying her showed me what I am," Clay said. "And it ain't the man you think." Maudella's breath rattled. "Tell him, Clay." Clay's voice dropped. "That child you keep saying I murdered, he wasn't my son. But I still carry him. Every damn day." Tate barked a laugh. "You carry him? You left a 4-year-old in the mud." "And I live with that every damn morning," Clay shouted. "You think I sleep at night?" The wind howled between them, a cold, dry breath from the canyon. Then Maudella coughed blood. Clay turned just in time to catch her as she crumpled. "Go," she whispered. "This ain't your fight." "It always was," Clay said. Her eyes fluttered. "Tell me something, Clay. Tell me you ain't like them." He looked down at her, saw the fear there, just a flicker behind the iron. And he said what he hadn't said to any soul since the war. "I ain't." She smiled faintly. "Then make sure they know it." He laid her gently down on the porch and stood, blood on his hands, rage in his chest. He walked down the steps toward Tate. Tate drew first. Clay didn't move fast. He moved right. Tate's bullet grazed his coat. Clay fired once, center mass. Tate stumbled, staggered, dropped his gun, fell to his knees. Clay walked to him, rifle lowered. Tate coughed, blood spilling from his mouth. "You still a killer, McGraw?" Clay looked him in the eye. "No, just a man who got tired of running." Tate fell backward, still. The men behind him lowered their weapons. Clay stood alone now, in torchlight and smoke, rifle across his chest. The dust settled like ash around him. He turned, walked slowly back to the porch, and found Maudella still breathing, but barely. She smiled, eyes glassy. "You're different." Clay knelt. "You planned this, didn't you?" She coughed, winced. "Wanted to see if you'd survive. I don't mean the attack. I mean us. The marriage. The letters. The bait." Maudella nodded slowly. "Wasn't sure. About you. About what I wanted. About what you were. But I had to know. Had to see. See what? If pain could make something worth loving again." Clay's eyes stung. And did it? She closed her eyes. Too early to tell. He held her hand, rough and calloused as his own. "Tell me the truth," he said. "The child. The letter. The boots. Why me?" Her voice was so quiet he had to lean in. "You were my son's friend. The only one who came back. I needed to know if any piece of him lived in you, or if the war had burned it all away." Clay's voice broke. "You think he'd forgive me?" Her hand squeezed as once. "I do." Her chest rose once more, then fell. And that was all. Clay sat there for a while. Then he stood. The sky was starting to lighten, just a sliver on the edge of the earth. He buried her behind the mansion, beneath the pecan tree she planted when she was 16. He buried her in her boots, shotgun laid across her chest, and carved her name into a plank of cedar. Not a cross. A star. Maudella Rigsby. wife, widow, war fighter. 3 weeks later, the dust still hadn't settled. Clay stood on the porch, watching a herd of cattle roll across the horizon. The land was his now by contract and blood. The deed sat in the study, next to a photo of a boy with eyes like his own. He didn't sleep much, didn't talk much either, but he rode, and every time he passed her grave, he touched his hat and said, "Still here." The townsfolk stopped whispering. The sheriff's badge was found in the dirt where Tate had fallen. Clay left it there. Didn't need it. Didn't want it. He had enough weight in his chest without the law adding more. And one evening, as the sun painted the canyon in fire and the wind moved through the grass like it had somewhere to be, Clay sat on the porch, pulled out the old photo, and spoke aloud for the first time in days. "If you're listening, Ma Della, I hope you know. I never meant to hurt no one. I just didn't know how to stop." The wind didn't answer, but the silence felt different now. Softer. Somewhere in the house, the floorboards creaked, old wood shifting under time. Not ghosts, not secrets, just memories. He leaned back in his chair, rifle on his lap, eyes scanning the horizon. The frontier had taken a lot from him, but it had given something too. Not peace, not forgiveness, but a reason to stay. And sometimes that was enough.